Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video I'm talking about moon square or opposite to Pluto in the natal chart. So if you were born with either of these aspects in your natal chart, you are a Plutonic person. Um, these aspects, and I don't usually put the square and the opposition together, but I am for this one because pretty much everything that I'm going to say is going to apply to both the square and opposition. But the main key difference is that the opposition is more relational. So there's more likely a tendency for the person with the opposition to project this energy onto other people and not maybe identify with it as much. But because the moon is involved in both of these aspects, it's definitely like they feel this more. So there's less projection as with other oppositions, but definitely still that's the main difference, is like the aspect can show that, they attract maybe more Plutonic types, and it's like the volatility of this aspect seemingly comes from the outside with the opposition, but usually with both we're going to see these same traits that I'm going to talk about here. So I'm not surprised that these aspects were requested, because when you have these aspects in your natal chart, you want to get to the bottom of things and you want to figure out why you are the way that you are, and sometimes even obsessively. These aspects can show people who are just completely ruthless and obsessed with many things, maybe, different things throughout the course of their own life. But it definitely shows a very intense, passionate nature, and a lot is rooted in emotional disturbance, something that has happened, very early in childhood, or even in past lives, or even in the mother's energy field or the feminine lineage of um, their feminine lineage and their family line, like their genetic like heritage is a very strongly Plutonic woman. Maybe she was a Scorpio moon, maybe she was a Scorpio rising, maybe she was a Scorpio sun, maybe she had moon Pluto aspects herself, if we're talking mom, grandma, whoever. So this aspect, and the reason I say that it can go back like genetically, is because the moon is like our roots, it's our ancestry, it's like fourth house, like what we've come from, what it felt like as a small child in the home. So with these aspects, you'll see that like the home was usually not a very nurturing place, or if it was in a way that was maybe even too much. So you can see a few things here. Sometimes you can see the parents, or specifically the mother, usually being very smothering with a moon Pluto aspect, where like, for example, like the mother like reads the kid's diary, or like there's an invasion of personal space, and it can actually come from either parent, because it's just like the home life. Maybe it's a sibling, maybe it's someone else who's living in the home, there's something invading the energy field of the moon Pluto person, and they can definitely feel like they need privacy, and that need for privacy can like continue, like even as they move out, they grow up and they live on their own, they still like time and time again they're going to need to get away from people and retreat because of this feeling of being invaded or attacked or smothered by someone in the family, likely the mother, but it could have been anybody in the home. And it also even can be that the person is smothered by their own emotions. Like there's a very like feeling of being invaded, attacked, and like they can't get away from this volatile emotional world. And a lot of it is actually their own feelings too, so we don't want to just completely entirely like blame the family and the genetics and everybody that came before and past lives or whatever. A lot of it is, they're continuing to carry this on, in the current lifetime. But it's not always a very happy place to be. It's very intense. It can feel like your own emotional state is like at the mercy of, all these external circumstances. Specifically, if you have the opposition, it's going to seem like external things just keep attacking you, people, circumstances like. And with the square, it can seem like that too, but there's usually an awareness with the square that like a lot of these battles are internal. And so what that leads to is a very like probing depth, and emotional resilience, and also like this person is like a natural psychologist. Like you want to get in there and you want to read every book about human psychology and why humans are the way that they are. And if you're an astrologer, perfect, because you're going to just love the psychological aspect of it. So this aspect can be very good for like healers, therapists, psychologists, everything like that. These people are a natural at that. And even though the emotions are so volatile and there can be relationship problems and difficulties in relating with others because of this kind of lone wolf energy where these people, they do, it's so interesting because it's like you need closeness with people. You need to be like merging at the soul level. There can be a very passionate, even though this is moon, we're not really talking Mars, we're not talking sexual energy, but there can be a very sexual, very clingy, like needy energy that these people have. But then at the same time, they need their space. And so it can be hard to relate in an intimate setting with these people because of the volatility and there can be a lot of jealousy, there can be a lot of fear, a lot of insecurity, a lot of wanting to hold people really close but then not wanting to actually share the truth, the depth, the vulnerability of themselves. So like people with these aspects can really love to probe into the psyche of everyone else and be kind of like the therapist for everybody, and they like that, but then without sharing how they feel or what's going on with them. And that's reserved for maybe just a few people or maybe nobody when you have these aspects. So it's very interesting when you see people with these aspects because, yeah, on the one hand, they need closeness and emotional connection with people. But on the other hand, they withdraw, or with the opposition, it's going to be like off on. With square, it can be even more toxic, kind of like they want to have complete control sometimes in relationships. They want to totally own you and know everything about you and like be with you every day, but then at the same time they'll cut you off in a second if they perceive a threat or they perceive that you could be rejecting them. They hate rejection. When you have this aspect, the biggest root or the biggest like pain is being rejected, being ridiculed, being smothered is another, like I said. And yeah, so it definitely can show difficulties in relationships, but more often than not, because this aspect is so intense and the early life, the emotional life, the relationships are so intense and chaotic, what will happen is that at an early age or an earlier age than most, a wisdom is born, and an emotional, I don't want to say stability because I don't know if it ever is totally stable, but like a resilience is born where like you can weather the storms. And these people do often end up in relationships and they're very charismatic, and people who don't know them closely especially find them very attractive, very alluring because of their like intensity and this aura that they have. It's very penetrating, it's very healing. They're the natural healers with these hard aspects of Moon Pluto. So they do often end up with a lot of experience in intimate relationships, in relationships. So it's not as much of a loner aspect as you would think, or even as a Moon Saturn square. Like that is more um, isolating, even because the Pluto urge to merge with another soul, although with the hard aspects, this is very difficult. It's like a frustration with the square to do it, and it's like, it drives you crazy, but you get in that relationship anyways. With the opposition, you're going to get in there too, and then your partner's going to appear to be like the one who's going through all these emotional things, and then you can feel like you're the superior one, you're the guidance counselor, you're the like Moon Pluto people love that, right? So yeah, it's fascinating. I have the square in my natal chart. It's not my closest aspect to my moon. It's about 5 or so degrees, so I don't always look at it first as some of the other closer aspects of my natal chart, but you can definitely allow an orb for the moon for even like up to 8 or even 10 degrees. Like that could be reaching a bit with the moon, but in your natal chart, you can definitely, for sun and moon, extend orbs a little bit. So yeah, it's definitely one that I studied a lot in my life. It's something that when I read it, I was like, oh, that's it. And when I was younger, I had a lot more, I would say, emotional volatility and crisis, and more difficulties in relationships. I feel like now I have a better handle on it, that I actually like have a lot of like emotional power. Like I still go through the ups and downs, but like the wisdom has come through. And obviously I've gone through some things in my life, like death, like the loss of my husband, and that's even kind of like a Moon Pluto thing, where you are so emotionally attached to someone. You're just obsessed with them. You need them. Like we were together every single day. Like it was like we were so close. And then they die. Or it doesn't have to be a death like that. In my case, it was a death. And yeah, so with the Moon Pluto aspects, it's like you fear that. Like change and loss and rejection. I mean, I don't know what's worse. They're all bad for a Moon Pluto person, because Moon is where you're seeking security, and Pluto represents death, and it represents like total transformation and letting all of the things that you're holding on to so tightly. It's like when you have these aspects, the tighter you hold on to things, the more likely you will lose those things. Or like the more you fear someone's rejection, like you'll have to go through it. It's like you just don't get a break with these aspects. Like you you get forced to go through transformation after transformation, and it's kind of like your emotional body, like in your aura, it goes through this like cathartic like rebirth over and over and over again, until you just get to this place where I have no fear, because I've truly gone through it all. Like it can't be much worse. So then you feel empowered, and you feel strong, and you feel like, and that you can be there for others who are going through things, because you've gone through so much emotional things, so many crises, and starting from very early in childhood or even past life, you've been forced to deal with things that you didn't want to deal with, right? And you've become so strong for it. And yeah, it really does become a huge blessing and a gift. And the square, the opposition, it's an aspect of power, because the hard aspects force you to grow. People with the easy aspects of Moon and Pluto, you may be jealous of them. I sure was. But they're not forced to deal with these emotional things like you are. And so they might mess around and not even learn their emotional lessons. They might end up having more volatile emotions than you because they weren't forced to deal with it at such a young age. So, yeah, often the childhood, like I said, it didn't feel comfy, cozy. There was something invasive, something stressful. Maybe there was a lot of drama. Maybe there was a Plutonic figure, someone who's very intense, and, there was fighting, or, and then as a child or as a young person, you start to wonder about like the psychology of things and like, why are people like this, right? Why are people the way that they are? And that leads you to the wisdom that you gain with this aspect, which is a lot. So yeah, there's also a lot of psychic ability because and it's like an emotional empathic ability because of the receptivity, like almost too much so at times, where you pick up other people's energy. You emotionally, you can't tune out, like if someone's in a bad mood over there. You read people, you pick up their emotions, and sometimes it's uncomfortable actually because you can't really like zone it out. You'll learn as you learn like energetic practices or emotional, like if you strengthen your own field and your own energy, you can better tune it out. But yeah, it still very much emotionally affects you, like when other people are in a bad mood or going through something. And that's what puts you in a great position for these healing professions, or yeah, counseling or therapy or astrology. Like wherever you're working, the moon Pluto, it works really well in a one-to-one level actually with people, and people can feel really seen by people that have moon Pluto aspects. They can feel really like emotionally understood. And yeah, I'm almost at a loss for words with this one, and even though I've talked for so long, oh my god, but it's a lot. And yeah, I'd love to know your experience of this aspect too, if you have it in your natal chart or someone that does. What's it been like? Let me know. I'd love to know in the comments. And thank you so much for watching, you guys, and sending you all the love. If you have these hard aspects, I know it's not been easy, but you are a powerful force of healing. Okay. Love you guys. Bye.